It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Elias Scultori, MCC, to our final session for today, International Coaching Week. And if you don't know Elias, you need to get to know him better, because he is one of, by far, the best coaches in guiding leaders to adopt a coaching approach. He's an official assessor, so you want to be on his good side, and mentor coach for the International Coaching Federation. He's also a faculty member at UT Dallas and ICG. Recently, he co-founded the Prime Coaching Academy, which intensifies his role in shaping the future of coaching professionals. Elias is dedicated and passionate about DEIJ, and he loves to support clients in asserting their presence and refining their voices in diverse settings. Elias, welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, ICF South Florida, for having me once again. Thank you, Shaki. Thank you, Lubna, Jamie, Valeska, and everybody involved in ICF South Florida. You are all doing an amazing job. Tour de force this week here with so many events, and it's truly a privilege for me to be here. And I appreciate the opportunity. And to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about coaching skills and the importance for us as coaches to continue to refine our professional and ethical standards so that we can represent our profession well to our clients, and that we can provide value to our clients. And I truly believe that there is so much within these competencies. I always say this, that it's always funny when I go to these ICF assessors meetings, and here we go, all of these very experienced coaches, and we're talking about the competencies, and we're looking at the words and the little terms, and voila, there is something that, I never thought about that, even after all of the years. And it to me, it shows how rich and human these competencies are. They are not here simply for us I'm going to follow them because I was told so, but there is really beauty behind them. And one of the things that I love to do when I'm working with my students, when I'm working with my mentees, is to open our eyes to what is the humanity that is behind these competencies. These are not simply rules to follow, but they make sense. So today, I think that in the short amount of time that we have here, we are going to embrace a humongous topic, which is competency number 3. And who can tell me, what is competency number 3? I forgot. Who can tell me? Put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Remind me here, because I don't remember it anymore.
Establishing agreements.
I don't believe you, Elias. I don't believe you.
You don't believe me on that? Sorry, look. Yes, establishes agreement. More specifically, establishes and maintains agreement. That's the title of that particular core competency. And I'm going to be sharing some slides here for you. Where is the share button? Oh, the share button is the only green one in front of me, and I always forget where they are. But here it is, the ICF core competencies establishes and maintains agreements. And forgive me, everyone, I have a lot to share, so I will have to talk a lot here. But as you know, if you've been in my presentations and in my classroom, you know that I prefer to just have a conversation instead of simply talking. But let's see what we can do here together. All good? Set to go? So establishes and maintains agreement. The definition that the ICF gives to this particular competency is partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, process, plans, and goals, establishes agreements for the overall coaching engagement, as well as those for each coaching session. So you probably read this before. Maybe you read this such a long time ago, you don't remember this, but as I am reading this for you, what comes to mind? What comes to, let me just ask one question at a time, Elias. What comes to mind? Anyone?
It gets trickier when it comes to each coaching session, weirdly.
Trickier when it comes to each coaching session. I understand that. Yep. Great point. What else?
I have it the other way around.
So what is the other way around for you, Joe?
Establishing the big arc, that feels like that has a lot more room to change and evolve as you work with a client session to session. And so trying to make sure we're still on track for what we agreed to do and what the client wants to do.
And thank you for both Samantha and Joe here, because you brought the core of what this competency is about. This competency is a big competency because it encompasses several aspects of this agreement that we are establishing with the client. And one part is the session agreement for each session, and one part is the overarching agreement. It's something that we need to be mindful of as coaches. We are called for. So this is perhaps what does it mean? What does it mean to create an agreement, right? What does it mean, these particular words? So this is something that we need to keep in mind here. The other question that I have is, why? Why do we need to establish agreements? Both the overarching and the session agreement. Anyone?
I think sometimes what your sponsor wants may not necessarily be what your client wants.
So clarifying the expectations of both the client and the stakeholder is crucial, because otherwise, if we simply start coaching and this is not clear, we're going to run into trouble, right? At some point, these two expectations are going to clash. Okay, so that's one reason why. What other whys here? Why is it important for us to establish and maintain agreement? Barbara.
Well, maybe for us as coach is a guide. I mean, is the best initial way to guide, to know where to go, to start the conversation with our client. And for them is the very first awareness of the session, like, okay, let me think, well, what I want to talk about. So it's the very, very first awareness that we ask them to have, like.
Fantastic. So having a session agreement gives us the guidelines for us to what is the direction that we are going to go. Otherwise, it's going to be, we can go here, we can go there, right? And that, to me, is one of the foundational distinctions of the coaching process. We can have insightful conversations everywhere. I can sit down next to someone at the in an airplane and have a conversation with this person, and all of a sudden, this person asks me a question or points out something that I said, and voila, I have an aha moment. We can have a conversation with our spouse, with our family, with a friend, and it's insightful. So if coaching is simply an insightful conversation, why do I have to pay a bunch of bucks to a professional coach? Why do I need to go through all of the coach training and certification and all of this for me to do this if I can have an insightful conversation with everybody, anywhere? It's the distinction of coaching. Coaching is not just an insightful conversation. Coaching is an intentional process. And the role of the professional coach is to be masterful in how to convey that process in a way that it has intentionality and value. Lubna,
Yes.
Before you go there, I see Joe raised her hand.
That's why I'm just saying Joe raised his hand. And also we have Moira said that that's the most difficult part for her, is that the master agreement is the most difficult. Just wanted to share that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Similar to Joe there. And Joe, that raised their hand, please. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I was actually going to lean into what you had said about it's that distinction, and it's part of the relationship building with the client in that it becomes more apparent to them that this is a special kind of conversation and not just one that you would have with a friend. It creates that sense of intention and professionalism in the conversation.
100%. Thank you for that. This is something that I'm raising this point for us to notice how crucial this particular competency is for the coaching process. This is a friend of mine from ICF New Jersey used to say that the coaching agreement is the North Star. Without that North Star, we can't go. There is no place to go, or we can go here, we can go there. I love the North Star, and I always say there's, the discoverers. When they were coming from Europe and discovering America, all of the ships were coming. Well, they didn't have any instruments to find their way around. It was the stars, right? If they didn't have the stars there, they would go here, they would end up over there, and they would get lost in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So the North Star gave them a specific direction. We are going towards that place. So establishing a session agreement is foundational for a coaching conversation, a coaching process. So that's why we have this particular competency. And I'm going to just point out this particular question, why. This is one question that I always come back to when I am mentoring and training new coaches. Please, I would encourage you all, whenever you are presented to a competency, a skill, ask why. Don't simply accept the competency or accept that rule just because someone told you so. Understand the why behind, and the moment that you understand the why, it's no longer a rule to follow. All of a sudden, it's something that is ingrained in you, and of course, I'm going to do that. And we want the session agreement to be something like this, the agreement to be like that. So as you know, let me keep moving over here. As you know, there are 11 standards statements within this particular core competency. And I listed them over here, and you can glance through them. I listed just because it's important for us to be aware of them, but I listed just the first 5 over here. So I'm going to give you like a few moments here for you to glance through these first 5 statements here. What do you notice about these first 5 statements? And when you have an answer, please unmute yourself, raise your hand.
Meg says the word partner is what she notices.
Partner, and thank you, Lubna, for monitoring the chat, because I can't do 2 things at the same time.
That's why I'm here for you, Elias. That's my job.
Partnership, definitely. What else?
This part seems a bit more administrative and sort of explanatory to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. There is a lot of administrative part, logistics, fees, scheduling, duration, termination, all of that set up. If you notice, all of these first 5 statements, it's all about the overarching agreement of the coaching conversation. It's all about the importance of us. The bottom line, instead of us getting overwhelmed with all of these statements and all of these words, the bottom line of the first 5 statements is the ICF coming to us and say, hey, it is good practice for us to establish a very clear set agreement for this process at large. What is it that we are here about? What is coaching? Is everybody clear about what coaching is in this relationship? Are the expectations of the stakeholders and the client, in some sort of alignment there? What are the guidelines? Or when are we going to meet? These matter of facts, things that need to be done, and are right there listed. But the bottom line of these 5 statements is make sure that you have a very clear very clear overarching agreement for the coaching process. Do we need to ask the question why here? It's a closed-ended question that I asked.
Yeah.
Right? I think that and I asked a closed-ended question because to me it seems very obvious. Like, how are we going to establish this particular session? How are we going to establish this process with the client if we don't establish that particular overarching agreement? So it's the ICF putting a spotlight for us here. Hey, when you have a client, make sure, in order for you to have a smooth sail with this client, make sure that there is a very clear overarching agreement. And here are points for you to consider. Jimmy.
Yeah, Elias, I just wanted to say, and it went back to somebody's comment earlier. It's if you don't do this, you don't have a coaching conversation. Like, you're just having an interesting conversation, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And there is no structure. It's not professional. It's haphazard. There is no structure to the coaching conversation. What are we working here towards? So it's the ICF saying, yeah, we're going to put 5 standards over here, 5 statements. But the bottom line here is that you need to establish. It's very important that you establish an overarching agreement for the coaching conversation. So this is the focus of those 5 statements. And then there are another 5 statements, statements 6 to 10. So I'm going to give you a few moments over here. If you go through these statements, what are they talking about here? These next 5 statements.
To me, this seems like meaning. What does it really mean? What does it look like? How will we know? And this is where the client begins to put their stake in the ground.
100%. It's becoming more granular, right? Like we have the first 5 statements that is more about the overarching vision for the process. Here comes the next 5 statements, 6 to 10, saying, okay, now that we have this foundation, let's narrow it down. Excellent. What else? What else do you see, Jimmy?
It's like asking, are you really, really sure this is what you want to talk about for the next amount of time?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. So it's confirming with the client. Barbara, you raised your hand too.
Yeah, no, I was thinking giving the client all the attention, it's all about them in this part, like your goals, your success, it's about you.
So emphasizing the client is in charge, emphasizing the coaching mindset at the core of the coaching mindset. Yes, Lubna.
Helena says to help to determine whether the client is even coachable. Peggy, these are 5 about the session. Yeah, Joseph said these 5 are about specifically this session, which is absolutely correct.
Very good. Very good perception. So the first 5, we were saying that it's about the overarching agreement. Statement 6 to 10 is really focused on the session agreement. So and I'm going to put it back here because I know that you want to go back to verify that. But here's the ICF saying, okay, we have the overarching agreement. We have this goal for the whole process. But the ICF is also giving us the idea that even though we have this overarching agreement, it's imperative that at every conversation we check with the client, and going on I think what Barbara said earlier, the client is in charge. So for this conversation that we are going to have right now, where are we going? What is the agreement for this particular session? What are we going to do here in these 30 minutes, the 45 minutes, the hour, the day that we are going to spend in this particular coaching session? What is the goal? Moira.
I wanted to ask, somebody just said, this is when we decide if, or we determine if the client is coachable. Does that happen in the session or does it happen in the master?
Yes. So here, if we go here, what was the statement here? I need to get. Yes, partners. So statement number 5: partners with the client to determine client coach compatibility. Right. So I think that is already talking about there. So I think that reaches agreement about what is and what is not appropriate, what is and what is not being offered, and the responsibility of the client and relevant stakeholders. All of this we want to set up in the overarching agreement at the beginning of that. However, these things are very organic as well. Sometimes you have a session, a chemistry call with the client or whatever you call that, and then as the process evolves, you get a better nuance of what is truly happening there. So I think it's something that we check in the beginning, but we keep checking along the way as well. Yes, thank you for that. But crucial for us to establish what is the willingness of the client to participate in the coaching process. Coaching, there is one definition that I use in coach training that says coaching is a partnership with a willing individual. If that person is not willing, there is no coaching. I cannot coach, right? I cannot coach that person. So anyways, these next 5 standards, it's really about, here are things for you to consider when you're establishing a session agreement with a client. And the importance of not only having the overarching agreement, but having the an agreement for the session every coaching session. Okay, so this is the session agreement. But we have one more statement. It's 11 statements. So here is the last statement. What is this about? Anyone?
It honors them and the work they've done to identify issues, reflections, and applications. How will they use it?
It looks like there's a beginning and there's an end, right? Like there's a grace to start and grace when you end.
I love Cam. I love the alumna. Absolutely. It's really showing the importance of starting the process well, going through the process well, and closing the process well. We, as professionally trained coaches, we as members of the ICF, we check the box there and we say, okay, I abide by the ICF Code of Ethics. We want to show professionalism in our practices. So when we are working with a client, we want to have a beginning, middle, and end in agreement with this client. And it to me is beautiful. It's this organic, and that comes back to the human aspect of coaching, that we are building a relationship with this individual. So let's treat this whole process here organically and humanely. What is it that you want? How can I support you over in this long-term process? How can I support you today? Okay, so now that it's time for you to move on, how are we going to close this process well? So it's really competency number 3, establishes and maintains agreements, is really putting the spotlight on us creating this beautiful arch of the coaching conversation, the coaching process with our clients, and how important it is for us to show professionalism when we do this with the client. I think it's beautiful, right? Anyways, I get excited with these things. So these are the three points. And I say this because sometimes we go to the core competencies and we see a list of things. Competency 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each one has a bunch of statements over there, and we get overwhelmed with all of these statements. Oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to, remember all of this or demonstrate all of this with my clients? Oh, these competencies are so constraining, and I can't do this. Well, let's ask why. Let's go and look at these competencies, see what the real purpose is behind them, so that all of a sudden it's no longer simply rules to follow, no longer constraining, but actually freeing us from being able to support our clients. I always say that the core competency is actually a gift that the ICF has given us, because then I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. I have this best practice right in front of me, and my job is to understand these best practice to the best of my abilities, so that I am free to be able to support this individual in front of me. Okay, so I hope that this real short glance at the competencies gives you a little bit more perspective about this particular competency, that this is beginning, middle, and end. Make sure that when you engage with your client, that you have a very good initial agreement, that at every step of the way you are agreeing with the client, what the client needs in the moment, and that you also close the process very well, professionally and beautiful to this human being. Oh, I love the hearts there, Lubna. Any thoughts so far? I have more here to give you, but so far, what are insights and points that you would like to bring to the whole group here? Adriana, and then Barbara.
Yes, hi. Maybe this is a commonplace, but what I see is that it's like planning a safe trip. So the first 5 is like planning how to go, what are the rules to get there. The second 5 are like starting that trip, when you are continuously checking that you are on the road that you want to be. And the last one is to reach that safe place.
Fantastic. That's why I love coming to these meetings here, because there is always a different way to verbalize that, right? To verbalize these concepts. Thank you, Adriana. That was such a gift to us. Appreciate that. Barbara, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I love the last part. Well, it was so well explained. I'm not aware a lot of all the competencies yet, but this explanation, I love it. And I don't have so much experience in coaching, but this last part about the aha and appreciation at the end of is one of I love this part, because give me the sensation that is like getting to the very first goal. I mean, I can see that this is the part where also the client can relax and can be happy for the very first achievement that is right during the session. We know that they will have more between sessions and during the time, but this is the very maybe first short time achievement that they can see and feel really with the aha and appreciation at the end of the session.
Yeah, beautiful. At the end of the session and at the end of the whole process as well.
Yeah,
So how are we going to close this in a way that propels you forward? What is next for you? We want to support the client into creating a plan. Just like at the end of every coaching session, we want the client to leave with a movement forward. We want at the end of the whole process for the client to have a movement forward for them after the process of coaching is over. So it's really, and I would really encourage all of you, this idea of beginning, middle, and end, it shows up in coaching all the time. And I would encourage you to think that beginning, middle, and end shows up in life everywhere. Right? So that, to me, that's when I start like getting very excited. The humanity of coaching, the humanity behind this mindset and these skills that we have to give to the world. We are bringing humanity even in the moment of contracting with the client. It's really, and if we are attuned to this humanity that is at the core of the coaching mindset, this will support us into being present. It will support us into supporting the client to be even more in contact with their humanity. So pay attention to this, because these beautiful things of human existence, it shows up everywhere in the competencies. And here you have, just in establishes and maintains agreement, we have a beautiful human story right there. Okay, but we have more to talk about here. You've probably heard of this that were called the PCC markers. Who knows what the PCC markers are? What is that about?
You know, when you're trying to get your PCC, these are the things you need to demonstrate.
Beautifully said. The PCC markers became this
I
big...
might be thinking about them a lot.
I wonder why, Kathy. Excellent. So PCC markers is really the ICF effort in standardizing, especially standardizing the assessing process at a PCC level. The ICF did a tremendous job into creating, okay, so what does a coach need to demonstrate when a coach is coaching at PCC level? What does that mean? What are the markers that identify that this coach is really not simply coaching at ACC, but this coach has refined their coaching skills and mindset to a level of PCC? And it was revolutionary at the time, because it was the first time that the ICF, besides the ICF core competency, the ICF gave like very specific structure, very specific language for this level of certification. And everybody fell in love with the PCC markers. And then all of a sudden, everything was PCC markers, and every coaching training program was PCC markers and PCC markers, and became PCC markers. And everywhere you go, it's PCC markers. Became like kind of, we as coaches in the coaching industry became kind of obsessed with the PCC markers. And I love it, because it really gave us so much clarification on what the competencies are. We need to be careful, because sometimes in our obsession with the PCC markers, all of a sudden we put the PCC markers on top of the core competencies. And it's not. Our guidelines is the competencies, the PCC markers. And I always to emphasize that PCC markers were created as an assessor's tool. This is a tool for the assessors, not for coaching education, right? It informs coaching education, but the function of the PCC markers is to support assessors in the assessing process. But so I say this so that you, even when you are applying for your PCC, if you're applying for the ACC bars now, the MCC bars, don't get obsessed with them. It's important for you to be aware of them, but do not get overwhelmed with them. But there are some things that we can learn from these PCC markers. So that's why I'm bringing this up here in the conversation. There are 4 markers for this particular competency. So I'm going to let you read these markers there. What do you see in these markers?
Elias, for me, these were the easiest to miss during the coaching session, the easiest to miss, and probably the most significant not to miss. Because the power of asking why it's important to them leads to the real need versus just the surface. Such an important competency.
100%. So this is beautiful. Thank you for that, Lubna. Because and it shows the wisdom behind these markers. It's again the ICF giving us a gift Okay, so we talked about that it's very important for us to have a session agreement. And remember, when you go for your PCC, the assessor is really looking at your session at the moment when you are coaching that client. So the assessor is not there to evaluate the first 5 statements of the core competency, which is about the overarching agreement. The assessor is really paying attention of your skill of how to establish the session agreement, which is standard 6 to 10, right? So these 4 markers are really talking specifically about ways that usually when a coach addresses them, it demonstrates that we have established a good session agreement. Okay, so this is basically what they are. So I like to summarize them because, again, my whole thing as a coach educator, my job here is to streamline things for you so that you don't read this sentence and get crazy, overwhelmed about them. So here are the bottom line. Here is the bottom line. First of all, crucial, and please keep that question why in the back of your mind as I'm explaining this. Crucial for us if when we are having a conversation with the client owns the process. The client has the responsibility of the process, right? The client is the one who is driving the bus. So for me to support the client into getting where they need to get, so it's very important for me to, okay, so where do you want to get? What is the purpose of this conversation? What are we working towards here? If we don't know that, if we don't know the outcome, how in the world am I going to support the client into getting there? Again, it's the distinction between having just an insightful conversation and having an intentional process. Coaching is an intentional process. We cannot have an intentional process if we don't know what the outcome is. So it's very crucial, as Lubna said, it's crucial for us to support the client into being able to access and verbalize what they are really looking for. And let me tell you, 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, the client comes to the session without knowing, even our best clients. They may come, they may be prepared, and they may come to the coaching session and they may say, okay, I want a strategy. I want a couple of to-do list things. And in my mind is like, okay, so what will the strategy provide? Oh, the strategy will provide me a little bit more assurance. I will feel a little bit more solid. So what the client wants, it's not a strategy. What the client really wants is to feel more secure about this process. It may be that a strategy will give them. It may be that something else will give them. But we know then we supported the client into identifying what is the crux of the matter. That is the outcome, okay, for every coaching conversation. Then it's important also like to support the client and say, how are we going to know that we got there? Because we may say, I want to feel more secure about this. What does that mean? What does it mean to be secure? How are you going to know that you're feeling secure about this particular process? So the evidence is also imperative because then it's going to be the measure of success of this particular coaching conversation. Another point, the third marker, is about meaning and importance. And I always say this is a marker that oftentimes we miss, but it's crucial because it really supports the client into connecting to their values, connecting to who they are. Why is this important to you right now? Out of everything that is happening in your life, what makes you focus on this particular point? This is crucial information for the clients to know so that they are really working towards something that is valuable to them, right? And so it clarifies the agreement. And then another point the fourth point, and I put that in gray because sometimes we forget about it, but it's something for us to consider is what are the barriers that may be in the way for us to achieve this particular session goal? What are things that we need to consider and address to make sure that this session is going to be successful? So I'm going to, I know that we are getting close to the time here for us to finish our conversation here today. I'm going to ask that question for you. Why? Why do you think that these 4 points are crucial for us to cover when we are in a coaching conversation with a client?
Elias, Kim says client reflects on and gets to their language about what they want.
Kim, I would love to hear more. How can you expand that thought process?
As you've already said, most of the clients I've ever been with, they don't really know, and then they start peeling it back. So why it's important to have these is so that they know how to do their work and they're motivated to get to the end, and we do it together.
100%. 100%. It's an agreement. We are both together working towards a specific goal. Crucial, right? We become a team. Without this, we are not a team. We may be working towards different directions here without even knowing that we are throwing the ball in different directions, right? What else? Why?
This sounds really simple, even when I just think it in my head, but a lot of when you say why, and you said it earlier as well, the one word that keeps coming up for me is just this really deep embodied clarity about all the different layers that go into the things that we're in these meetings for in the first place as clients. It's about bringing that clarity and that vision of that, I don't know, that awareness, I guess. Without this, I feel like it could just be lurking underneath and maybe not even really something the person is connected with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that you use the word clarity. That is the goal of coaching at large. We are there to support the client into clarifying, into looking and seeing more clearly their situation. And here comes the session agreement as the first step for us to provide a space for clarity for the client. Thank you for that, Joe.
I just, when you put it this way, Elias, in your own unique way, as you always do, I can't help but think of this as really such like the ultimate gateway to one of the bigger things we're striving at in coaching, which is not, it's definitely getting to the who and the deeper part of what the issue is about. But I think it's also showing that we trust our client and that we're not bringing our agenda, we're searching for the client's agenda. And so you're helping me think about it in an even deeper way about how to elicit that level of trust and also belief in my own self as a coach in what the client's expertise is in their life. I don't know if you're searching for that, but that's what's hitting me.
Wonderful. Fantastic. That's the idea here. I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing because it supports us into understanding this deeper. I hope that you all are noticing, besides your coach training, I hope that your coach training gave you this, but here is a renewed emphasis on the importance of this competency. I like to say the bottom line of the session agreement is us to support the client into identifying what is the crux of the matter. What is the point that we are going to address here today that is going to be transformative to you at this moment in time? Oftentimes, especially, I assess for the ICF all the time, and we take the PCC markers so literally that we simply ask these questions. Oh, what is the outcome? What is the measure of success? Why is this important? What are the points that we need to address here? And we ask these questions so prescriptively that we are actually not establishing a session agreement. We are simply robotically asking questions. That's not the purpose of the coaching agreement. The purpose of the coaching agreement is to support the client into discovering what is at the core. What is it that we truly need to address here for this to be a really valuable conversation for you? That is our job, and that is what needs to be in the back of our mind when we are in this process of establishing a session agreement with the client. How do we do this? Every coaching conversation is going to be different. Every time is going to be different. How long does it take for us to establish a session agreement? As long as it takes, because if we don't have this, we can't go, right? I always like to say, as long as it takes, as soon as possible, right? Because we don't want to get so comfortable in establishing the session agreement that, you know, we miss the opportunity to really tie the bow. So that is the balance that we as coaches need to be always striving for, to support the client into really what is at the core. Clients come to us not knowing, and it is our job to really support them to access and verbalize what is truly going to be transformative for this coaching conversation. Okay, so that's my message for you here. I'm going to, we still have a minute here to go, but I really want to share with you here that today is International Coaching Week, and I want to make sure that you know that Prime Coaching Academy is running a giveaway this week. So if you are looking for getting a second level 2 of coach training, it's if you have your ACC, or if you, even if you don't have your ACC, but you have a level 1 training and you would like to go to level 2, go to primecoachingacademy.com. Right on top, there is a banner that you can click and you can enter the giveaway. And Amy and I, we're going to give a full level 2 coach training program for free to one lucky winner, and a couple of other drawings that we are going to have as well. And I also want to let you know that I started a new podcast, which is called Prime Space. And I would love for you to, Kathy is already a subscriber there, so please go to Spotify or Apple Music and subscribe to that podcast. I'm hoping to add more episodes as it comes forward. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elias. Please remember to complete the form. It's on the chat, so we can give Elias feedback. This was very, very insightful. I loved what you said about bringing back humanity to coaching. That's what it's about. Creating the humanity when we start, during the process, and definitely when we close. Sometimes we may miss the boat on that, and it's okay to forgive ourselves, but to keep working toward it. And to the clarity that comes from having this competency fully executed. And most importantly, I love your why, asking the why. Asking why, absolutely ask why, challenge the process. Let's see what comes up for you.
Thank you, Lubna, and thank you, ICF South Florida, for once again having me, and thank you, everybody, for participating here.
Thank you, Lubna. Thank you, Elias. And thank you, everyone who was here. We couldn't do any of this without you. So beautiful to have you in our community. Have a wonderful evening.